Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the mother of a teenager murdered 20 years ago makes a new appeal for help to find her killer as police begin a major case review.
This has given me fresh hope, especially the forensic side of it. That's given me real hope that there could be light at the end of the tunnel.
Also on the programme, we have a special report from Serbia where Scottish aid workers say the plight of thousands of stranded refugees must not be forgotten. A disciplinary hearing has told a social worker involved in the case of murdered toddler Liam Fee was disorganised and chaotic. A record year for the Edinburgh Fringe with box office figures up again.
Exactly, sir. So we're respecting you.
And on your bike, the row between business and pedal power in the capital over plans for a major cycle route. Good evening. The mother of a teenage girl murdered 20 years ago has made a fresh appeal for help to find her killer. 14-year-old Caroline Glachan was found dead on the banks of the River Leven in Dumbartonshire in August 1996, about a mile from her home in Renton. Despite numerous appeals, no one has been arrested over her death. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, Rival Alderson.
No one has ever been arrested over the murder of 14-year-old Caroline Glachan 20 years ago this weekend. But 300 items gathered by police at the time of her death are now being re-examined by forensic scientists in a major reinvestigation of this cold case. It's given her mother renewed hope after years of turmoil.
This has given me fresh hope. This is I'm actually more buoyant, more upbeat about it than I've been for a long time, especially the forensic side of it. That's given me real hope that there could be light at the end of the tunnel.
CCTV footage just hours before she died shows Caroline with her best friend Joanne Menzies. They parted sometime later when Caroline went off to her boyfriend's house. It's still preying on Joanne's mind.
I hold a lot of guilt because I feel I should have went with her. So I feel as if I could have stopped it if I went with her. So I don't associate myself with a lot of people, don't trust a lot of people in this community.
Police said they wanted to trace a man with pointed features, wearing a green hooded top, close to the towpath where she died. Officers are still keen to speak to him. Forensic scientists are now working with state-of-the-art DNA technology to gain vital information which couldn't have been obtained 20 years ago. Although detectives believe the information about Caroline's killer remains in the local community, it'll be forensic evidence which will help point them to the answer.
I think there's been a lot of assumptions made at the time that Caroline was involved in one thing or another. She would have been exposed to drugs, alcohol, relationships, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc. But ultimately, you know, she didn't have any drugs in her system. She didn't have any alcohol in her system either. She was a 14-year-old bright schoolgirl who was walking down that towpath to see her boyfriend about 20 past midnight on Sunday the 25th of August, and she's been brutally attacked round about the head and has ended up in the River Leven.
Caroline was described as a fun-loving teenager with everything to live for. The mystery of her murder will feature on the BBC's Crime Watch programme next Monday. Rival Alderson, Reporting Scotland, Bon Hill.
Scottish aid workers are warning that refugees stranded in Europe should not be forgotten. Even though the numbers crossing Europe may have drastically fallen, many have been caught up in tightened restrictions on border crossings in the Balkans. In the first of two special reports from Serbia, here's Cameron Buttle.
On a quiet back street of central Belgrade, a small aid post for refugees and migrants. Inside, it's crammed, hot and noisy, getting busier and busier by the day. Aid workers here say around 40% of the refugees are children, like this little girl from Syria. She told me the worst part of her journey here was crossing through the mountains and dark forests.
She say they have the hardest way was on Macedonia, because like the border is closed and you say they walk 60 hours, like until they came here.
Here they try their best to give out the basics, food, water and some shelter, but they struggle to cope.
Since the border closures earlier this year, we've seen that the lack of organisation and system support that was in place to help people move through Europe and find a place of safety has disappeared. Borders have closed, but people are still getting through.
In a back room, they try to help young children who have already experienced great trauma. Bright, carefree pictures and colourings hide a much darker reality.
We should be always very careful with how we are going to deal with trauma. We really need different circumstances to deal with it. So that's why we actually use this kind of activities to identify some risks or conditions when we should involve some kind of some more specialized professionals.
We're now in a different part of Belgrade. This is a drop-in centre for families who have just arrived in Serbia. It's run by many different organisations. But what the aid workers are telling us here is that while the numbers of people arriving here are going down, they feel that families like these are in more danger than ever before.
Children who are travelling through Europe are often separated from their families. They're using smugglers to get them through Europe, which makes them very vulnerable to violence, to abuse, to possibly falling into the hands of traffickers. We need to make sure that there's sustained action to put in place a system support that provides help to children wherever they need it, whenever they need it, and that isn't happening right now.
Farwa left Iraq with her children in January. Now they're stuck near the bottom of a list of thousands waiting to cross the next border. She tells me she had lost hope, but now feels so close to seeing the rest of her family already in Germany. No one knows how long they'll be stranded here for, but they do know there'll be many more joining her every day. Cameron Buttle reporting Scotland, Belgrade.
A disciplinary hearing has heard that a social worker involved in the case of murdered toddler Liam Fee was disorganised and chaotic. Leslie Bate faces multiple charges from her time as a social worker in Fife. Andrew Anderson reports.
Leslie Bate faces charges involving 16 children from December 2011 to August 2014. It's alleged that she failed to take the necessary steps to minimise actual or potential risk to them. It's understood one of those children is Liam Fee. The 2-year-old was murdered by his mother and partner in March 2014. It's alleged Leslie Bate failed to follow up a referral more than a year earlier about bruising to Liam's face and concerns that he had a sore neck. Rachel and Naomi Fee's trial heard Liam's childminder was concerned he had arrived with scratches and bruises to his face. A woman who used the same childminder told the court that she had phoned social work because she was concerned about Liam. A Scottish Social Services Council hearing being held here in Dundee was told that Leslie Bate was under a disciplinary investigation and was off sick following Liam Fee's death. She was later transferred to another team. Her manager, James Ross, told the hearing she was erratic, disorganised and chaotic. Leslie Bate is not attending this hearing, which is due to run until Friday. The hearing was told that she'd relinquished her registration as a social worker, but did not admit any of the charges against her.
Well, still to come on tonight's Reporting Scotland. Another record year for the Edinburgh Fringe. And the Scottish Pooch is hoping to become the top dogs in Europe. Teachers are being given new guidelines about the curriculum for excellence. It follows concern some of them may have been trying to cram too much in at the expense of the basics like reading, writing and maths. Here's our education correspondent, Jamie McIver.
Mr. and Mrs. Dursley.
These youngsters are in no doubt just how important the basics are. Reading and writing is one of their teachers' top priorities.
When you grow up, it helps you to get a good job and a good education. When you're in high school and you know how to read, and it just makes you more smarter.
Why is it so important to work hard at your reading and your writing?
So when you're older, you can show that you're smart.
And today their school got a visit from the Education Secretary. He wants to make a clear point. Literacy, numeracy and health and well-being are the key aims of the curriculum.
At the heart of the success of Scottish education will be the most important resource that we have, and that's the ability of teachers to teach young people. And what this guidance is designed to do is to clarify and simplify that approach for the teaching profession, and that will assist us in closing the attainment gap within Scottish education.
This document is very much a list of do's and don'ts. The kind of impact it will have on children across Scotland will very much depend on how individual teachers, schools and councils choose to put it into practice. It's all about giving more clarity to the curriculum, not radical change. Do's include prioritising the basics and working to cut bureaucracy. Don'ts include rigid planning and doing too many things at the same time of year.
The key message is Curriculum for Excellence is about freeing up teachers to be creative and deliver a curriculum that suits their own pupils. And to help that along, we just need to be absolutely clear about what is required and, in many cases, what's not required.
So just why is more clarity needed? One concern is the difficulty improving standards in literacy and numeracy. The other, workload and bureaucracy for teachers.
There's something of an irony in that Education Scotland have issued clarification of their own previous guidelines. But we are willing to work with all agencies, including Scottish Government, to try and make sure that this time the rhetoric becomes reality.
There will be few obvious changes for pupils or parents. The big test is whether the new guidance actually helps improve performance over time. Jamie McIver, reporting Scotland.
Well, tonight, one big union in secondary schools has confirmed it will go ahead with a ballot on industrial action over teacher workload. The SSTA says it's welcoming Mr Swinney's efforts to reduce that workload, but it still has concerns, especially about the new qualifications. The result of the ballot is due at the end of next month. EIS members are already on a partial work to rule because of the workload over the exams. 2 American airline pilots have been released on bail and charged with being under the influence of alcohol as they prepared to fly a passenger jet from Glasgow to New York. Paul Grebenc and Carlos Licona were held by police following the alleged incident at Glasgow Airport on Saturday. The United Airlines flight took off later that day with a new crew and 141 passengers on board. Edinburgh International Festival and Fringe draw to a close tonight after another record-breaking year. For the first time, the International Festival sold over £4 million worth of tickets, while the Fringe, which is open access, issued 2.5 million tickets, an almost 8% increase on last year. Our arts correspondent Pauline McLean can tell us more.
It was already the biggest arts festival in the world, and this year it got a little bigger, at least in terms of the number of tickets issued. Almost 2.5 million, close to 8% up on last year. Individual shows set their own records. Glasgow Girls notching up 10,000 tickets long before the run ended.
It's probably been the best ever this year. I think extraordinary, actually. The growth in numbers has been really great. And the same is true across all the sort of, we work with the other 3 big venues here, the Gilna Balloon, Pleasance and Underbelly. And I think overall we've seen about a 7 or 8% increase this year, which is very, very good.
This is all I'm doing for 20 minutes.
But it's not just about selling tickets. There are other ways to measure a successful Fringe.
So we've had an absolutely amazing year this year. We've had lots of awards and we've had lots of audiences. We got the best newcomer, comedy newcomer, Scott Gibson.
Axis of Evil to Crawford.
Shows like this one raised awareness rather than a laugh, but it's also part of a growing area of the Fringe, which is less commercial.
There was a them and us, but that's breaking down, and I think the Fringe is a place for loads of different ideas, loads of different ways of doing it, and it's feeling healthier and healthier.
For the International Festival, it's also been a record year with £4 million worth of tickets sold for the first time. And as the festivals look forward to their 70th year, it seems they're both in rude health. Pauline McLean reporting, Scotland, Edinburgh.
A Shetland energy firm's tidal turbine system has become the first in the world to deliver electricity to the grid. Nova Innovation says its 2 turbines will feed up to 100 kilowatts of electricity, which is enough to power around 30 homes. A 3rd turbine is planned.
This is groundbreaking. Pioneering. You know, it's the birth of a new industry. We're talking about a reliable, predictable source of renewable energy, which could, you know, help us achieve our climate change goals, reduce carbon emissions, and you know, provide jobs, employment, both here in the UK, and it's got the potential to be exported overseas.
The castle, which serves as Inverness Sheriff Court, is to be transformed into a tourist attraction. Plans have been unveiled for a new so-called Justice Centre, which would house district and sheriff courts and agencies such as social work. It'll be the blueprint for a number of similar justice centres throughout Scotland. Now, plans for a major bike route through Edinburgh city centre will be considered by councillors tomorrow. Supporters say it will encourage more of us to get on our bikes. But businesses in the west of the city claim it could destroy their vital passing trade. Joanne Macaulay reports.
Exactly, sir. So we're respecting you. We are saying, have your cycle lane, but please don't interfere with my livelihood.
Opinions clashed as cyclists in favour of the route met shop owners in the Roseburn area of Edinburgh. These businesses say they can't survive if the existing parking and loading bays are reduced to make way for bikes.
Considering that 50% of our business actually comes from cars that are passing, we are hugely concerned by the impact of that. We're not millionaires by any means, and any small reduction in our income would have a huge impact for us.
The proposed cycle route would link Leith Walk in the east, come into the city centre along George Street. It would carry on west through Haymarket until Roseburn Terrace, where it's proved to be controversial. In this morning's rush hour, cyclists travelled en masse along the route to show their support for it.
It will open it up. It will actually make people think, I can do that. And we've seen in London, where they've put in high quality routes, that the amount of people using it is just mind-blowing.
I mean, about 10% of people in Edinburgh cycle already, so there's massive potential there, and if we can make the streets friendlier and more accessible to people, it'll just make a sea change for the city.
The Scottish Government says it's committed to getting more of us out of cars and onto bikes, and creating good cycle routes through our cities and towns is key to that. But many people here in Roseburn say that putting a main cycle route through a busy arterial route like this is only going to create more traffic problems.
If you've got 600 cars trying to get through 2 lanes, and you have an arrangement here that allows them to filter off right and left, if you reduce that to 1 lane, anybody turning right is going to obstruct the traffic coming behind, and you're going to create traffic jams.
Councillors will consider the options tomorrow. Joanne Macaulay reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Now, just as we're starting to catch our breath after the Olympics, another team of top Scottish athletes are about to head off to compete in a prestigious European competition. It's the first time a Scottish team has taken part in this event, where concentration and timing are key. Aileen Clark watched them in training.
Touch, Gertie, touch.
Their trainers have got the costumes.
Bow.
And dogs like Gertie the bearded collie,
Gertie, up,
have certainly got the moves. This is heel work, working closely with the dogs, with a bit of music and storytelling thrown in. Heather Smith from Troon has triumphed in these events at Crufts in the past. She's been training dogs for years.
They very quickly pick up tricks. Dogs like learning tricks. People like teaching tricks. It builds a bond. It builds listening in the dog. So I think heel work to music is just the best sport to do.
These teammates have adopted a faulty towers routine to show off their skills to the judges at the European Open. So Roxy, the Australian Shepherd, will have to keep this waiter off the wine that night. Her owner was in her 70s before trying this, and 5-year-old Roxy seems quite taken by her own starring role.
It's difficult when you're doing it to music because you've got to, your tricks have got to be at exactly the right time. You've got to start at the right time and finish exactly when the music finishes. So that takes quite a lot of practice, just getting that right. It can take up to a year to get a routine right.
Since Ashley and Pudsey won Britain's Got Talent 4 years ago, there's been a growing interest in canine choreography. Little Red Riding Hood. Luna, at just 2 years old, is going to be the youngest member of the Scottish team to head to Austria for the championships, and it seems she's making the most of every opportunity to practice.
She loves it. If you're just sitting in the house, she just will do random tricks if you look at her. Normally it's hiding her face, that's her favourite. But she does enjoy doing it, and she likes getting the treats and the toys for doing it as well. So it's all positive training.
Well, I've got the retention, but that's because I've got a favourite toy and some treats, so let's give it a go. Right, come on then, girls. Beg! Way! 2 out of 3 is not bad. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
Let's get the weather now. Over to Judith.
Difficult to follow, isn't it?
It
Thank you very
is.
much. Good evening to you. Well, most of us saw a beautiful day, and in fact this lovely picture from one of our weather watchers in Fife Kingsbarn. So these lovely blue skies indicative of what many of us saw. Clouds starting to now push in across the country as we speak, with outbreaks of rain, say north of the Central Belt, crossing the Highlands into just a few spots for Grampian. The main focus of the rain in the north and the Northern Isles eventually becoming confined to Shetland. Behind it, a legacy of cloud across western Scotland and some bits and pieces of rain, drizzle, quite murky conditions, with some clear spells across eastern Scotland. Quite a muggy night actually, lows of 13 to 15 Celsius. Quite a fresh southwesterly wind too, particularly along the west coast. It'll be brisker here. So tomorrow, bit of an east-west split initially. Good sunny spells in the east from first light. Cloudy, damp, drizzly in the west. The rain does clear away from Shetland, so it is an improving day. In fact, for most of us, it's an improving day. And I think come the afternoon, in that wind direction with quite brisk southwesterly winds, coastal areas, the southwest should brighten up and towards Kintyre, the Glasgow area looking at some sunshine. Temperatures not bad at all. Towards North Argyll, coastal parts of the West Highlands, the Western Isles too, damp, drizzly, misty, murky, some hill fog here too. Again, temperatures not bad, but windy along the west coast too. Something brighter for the Northern Isles for the afternoon, some sunshine for Caithness. For the northeast, plenty of sunshine towards Inverness. The highest temperatures for the northeast, 22, maybe 23 Celsius. In fact, eastern Scotland feeling very well in the sunshine and temperatures stake. As we head towards the evening, it stays dry and sunny for the first part of the evening. Then we see another band of rain pushing into the northwest, extending across the country as we head through tomorrow night. It is an overnight feature though. So if we take a wee look at the pressure chart, you can see that weather front pulls away, taking the rain with it. Then on Wednesday, the winds go into the west, introducing a showery airflow, but a brighter, fresher feel to things before high pressure builds in for Thursday. Showers for the west and north, quite a windy day. Still some brightness in between times, fewer showers for the south and east, with actually good sunny spells. And although feels fresher, temperatures aren't looking too bad at all. That's your forecast.
Thank you, Judith. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. The mother of a teenage girl murdered 20 years ago has made a fresh appeal for help to find her killer. 14-year-old Caroline Glachan was found dead on the banks of the River Leven in Dumbartonshire in 1996, about a mile from her home in Renton. Despite numerous appeals, no one has been arrested over her death. Migrants in Calais who want asylum in the UK should be allowed to lodge their claim in France, according to the president of the region. Xavier Bertrand says people living in the camp known as the Jungle should be able to apply for asylum before they reach this country. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'm back with our late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news.